I'm pretty sure he knew who he was talking about because when he got up, looked out at the crowd, he cracked a joke. It was nutty. The people in the pews were caterwauling like they were at some sort of town hall. If something like this had occurred prior to Vatican II, I expect there would have been excommunications.
Hey, what went down at St. Patrick's Cathedral? Some say America's parish. Well, it was pretty scandalous at the end of last week when a trans activist took over St. Patrick's Cathedral in a funeral. I guess it kind of proves it's like reason number 777 why we hold to tradition, because bad things happen and scandal grows. And so we're going to be talking about that today on the program. Michael Hitchborn is going to be on from Lepanto Institute.
By the way, my name is Joe McLean. I host a radio program called A Catholic Take, where we look at the world through a Catholic lens. I'd love for you to hang out with us. If you like it, give it a thumbs up and let us know what you think in the comments below.
Michael Hitchborn is back on the show today from lepantoin.org. Michael, good morning to you. Always grateful for your time. But what in the world has gone down in New York City?
Well, apparently a funeral of some sort, but a funeral that was also a blasphemy and a sacrilege. Unfortunately, it looks like somebody gave permission for there to be a funeral for a male transgender into female prostitute whom the eulogists at this thing called a whore and the queen of all whores, and Saint Cecilia, which is the female name that this person has taken on for themselves. So it was a massive sacrilege and blasphemy. The minute the people showed up, the men showed up wearing women's dresses and thick makeup, the people in charge at the cathedral really should have stopped them, told them, look, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that this was going to be some sort of a clown show, and sent them packing and said, we will make arrangements for a private burial, but this is not conducive to a Catholic funeral at all. And I know that they made amendments to what was taking place throughout the course of the funeral. It was going to be a mass, then they decided not to have a mass, then they expedited certain things. They tried fixing things, and then later on you see this statement that said, hey, we had no idea that this was what it was, except that there were people that were invited. There was a whole section cordoned off for clergy. James Martin said he knew about it in advance, so somebody's not being truthful.
I think the one key part of the story that we should really go back to is who knew what and when. Raymond Arroyo on Fox News said that the spokesperson for the Archdiocese of New York was told the day before whose funeral this was, a trans activist, and kind of was given an idea of what would go down. So did they turn the cheek intentionally? I don't know. Neither did Raymond, but nonetheless, that seems very interesting. You mentioned Father James Martin, who was invited to preach at this. So he certainly knew and welcomed it. So how is it possible that the rector of the cathedral simply couldn't put two and two together?
No, because at the funeral itself, there was a display with a stylized picture of the deceased. And on the display, it called her a whore. Wow. And there were other trans activist paraphernalia there on this particular display. So they allowed the display to be placed there. They allowed it to be brought into the cathedral itself. Because let's face it, when there's a funeral going on at a high-profile cathedral, they have the funeral director involved. They have a lot of people involved in setting things up and making sure that things are placed where they are. In explaining to the people who are participating, this is how it's going to go. This is how we're going to have this person do this. We're going to have this person do that. And the two people that eulogized this person were wearing outlandish outfits. One was an Hispanic man who was wearing a dress, and they must have been a part of the planning of this, because they knew where to be and when to be there. That doesn't happen by accident.
This individual, this man who identified as a woman and went by Cecilia, apparently in 2023, November 2023, according to this article, he identified as an atheist. You have to be a Catholic to have a Catholic Mass in a Catholic church, do you not?
That's correct. That's correct. However, they didn't have a Mass. And it looks like they initially planned on one, but then changed their mind. But the fact of the matter is that, yes, canon law dictates that you can't even have a Catholic funeral. You can't have a Catholic burial without being Catholic. So the celebrant of the funeral referred to this person as already sanctified. I mean, he said rests in the bosom of God, and used a few other terms. So it was pretty clear that I'm pretty sure he knew who he was talking about, because when he got up there and looked out at the crowd, he cracked a joke about how we can't even get this many people here on Sunday. I mean, it's just
yes,
it was nutty, and the people in the pews were, I mean, they were caterwauling like they were at some sort of town hall. It was just, it looked like a drunken bar scene from an 1800s saloon.
Father Martin, who you brought up a few minutes ago, was invited to give the homily. He said he was out of town. He basically feels like this should be a common occurrence, that we should be allowing this type of thing. Can you imagine, Michael Hitchborn, could anything have happened like this at St. Patrick's Cathedral in 1952? Could this have ever occurred prior to the Second Vatican Council?
If something like this had occurred prior to Vatican II, I expect there would have been excommunications all over the place.
It was an entire pew waiting for more clergy to show. They expected,
right,
as you said, more clergy. Any ideas on who might have been invited other than Father Martin?
Other than Father Martin, I don't know. Somebody was expecting somebody. That's clear.
And if that doesn't bother the vast majority of Catholics, there's real problems here. Let me ask you this, Michael Hitchborn. What was this response coming out of the Archdiocese the next day after the uproar?
Well, it started with them saying, "Oh, we had no idea that this was going to be like this, and we didn't know. We thought this person was Catholic. We didn't know that they weren't." And well, why didn't you? I mean, that's a valid question, is why didn't you know? You're supposed to at least verify that the person's Catholic for a Catholic funeral.
I was going to say they did do a massive reparation. Do you think they didn't reconsecrate the altar or anything like that because there was no mass, I suppose? But do you think, is that good enough? Is that was their response adequate to this situation?
No, I don't think so. I think that somebody needs to be fired. I think that there has to be an investigation into who was involved in planning this thing, who met with the funeral planners, who was involved, who put this thing on, and who were the porters at the door that allowed the costumed individuals to get into the pews. So there has to be an investigation. Just saying we didn't know isn't good enough, because it happened. And it happened to such a degree that you had a packed house that required a massive reparation at least. I don't know that the cathedral needs to necessarily be rededicated, but there has to be something a little bit more than just a massive reparation. You have to investigate, and you have to reveal who was behind all this.
So could it be that if I'm trying to be as nice and as fair as possible here, could it be possible that when they book the funeral, they're like, you know what, my heart breaks for you. We're going to do this for you. We're going to meet you where you're at and let you in the building. And then when they started coming in, they were like, "Oh, what have we done? We are in trouble now." But they didn't want it to like get out of control, so they just sort of rolling with it as it happened, and that maybe explains why they didn't throw people out or call the cops and put an end to it all. I mean, is there a positive spin to any of this?
If there's a fire in your house, do you sit there and step back and go, "Gosh, I don't know, I don't want this to get out of control. I'm gonna and hem and haw about going and getting someone and throwing water on the fire"? No, of course not. If you have a broken sewer pipe in your house, you're going to evacuate the house, and you're going to find somebody to fix that sewer pipe so that the raw sewage doesn't continue to flood your house. So no, I don't buy that at all.
Yeah. What would have happened, or what would have been our response if in the homily, had there been one, then the pastor or the priest stood up and said, "You need to repent while you still have the time." People die in their sins and they end up in hell for all eternity. And this is a tragedy we would all want to avoid. So let's repent. Imagine how we would have all had a different conversation today if that would have happened in St. Patrick's Cathedral. Do you think that might have been a different outcome in all of this?
I think you would have seen a riot inside the building, but I think that would have been the only appropriate response.
Did you like that video? It's okay. You can admit it. It's perfectly fine. Hey, we cover the big stories of our day, from inside the church to outside the church to all points in between, and we do it from a Catholic perspective. It's called A Catholic Take. It's a radio program Monday through Friday. We live stream it right here on this channel, by the way, so make sure to subscribe, like, and share. We would be very grateful to you. And don't forget, you're going to want to watch this video right here because you don't want to miss anything.